smiles. Hey, we're live.
Hi.
Just like
Hi,
that.
everyone. Just like that, we're live.
Yes. Hey, good
Hey,
afternoon, Fatty.
good morning and good
Yes,
evening.
yes, good evening. And,
Hello,
and
Leslie.
Leslie, good to see
Hello everyone.
you.
Coming
Yeah.
to you from Spain, so it is evening here.
It is evening,
You're
right?
coming from Spain?
Yes.
Right. Yes. Oh, we have a world-class show now, right? It's world class.
We do. So, everyone, I want to introduce you to Leslie Keeler Saglio properly. She was impressed with the way I pronounced her last name. I should know how to do that as an Italian. So, Leslie is a TEDx speaker, certified trauma informed master coach, and founder of the Feminine Power and Purpose Immersion. She's transforming the lives of women to stop playing small so that they can make a bigger impact and income. She's also earned her Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Southern California, Marshall School of Business. She's been featured in the US and international numerous media and publications such as Soho House, Virgin, and Well+Good. And she is a Filipino American, Los Angeles native, and London expat. She currently lives in Barcelona. Wow. You've certainly been around, and I want to welcome you to Look. We're very excited to have you on, and really excited to find out a little bit more about what your path has been, what brought you to do what you do today, and just what drives you to the work that you do.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Rick and Fatih. It's exciting to be here. Yeah. So as you mentioned, I'm coming to you from, Barcelona, Spain. I'm originally from Los Angeles, California. So yeah, my work as a trauma-informed master coach and really specifically working with women for the past few years on women's empowerment came from many years of struggling, but also my years of working very intimately with other women and seeing what actually needs to happen. What are those shifts that occur so that they can actually get to where they want to be? What are those steps that they need to get there, right? And so I've been really blessed to have this incredible international purposeful life, wife and mom to two beautiful children, while coaching women to unleash and lead in their feminine power so that they can be happy and free to live a life also on purpose and in pleasure. But it was not always like this. I grew up in Los Angeles, California as a brown Filipino American girl who looked very different from my peers. I struggled with self-worth and confidence. I got teased and bullied as a young girl. And while I yearned for a sense of belonging and seeking external validation, this is essentially what made me work really hard. I spent the majority of my life looking outside of myself for answers, and spent many years in my masculine, just pushing through the pain, and instead of striving, instead of letting life support me. And in Los Angeles, California, after graduating from the University of Southern California, I then worked for the biggest entertainment studio in the world. And I was successful in my own right, but still I played small. Still I struggled, lacked confidence, unaware of my self-worth. Yet, yeah, sure, I did all the things that I was told would fulfill me, but still I felt that something was missing. And then in London, when I became a mother, I thought for sure that was it, right? Like I ticked all the boxes, now I'm a mother, that's it, I'm good. But I continued to be really hard on myself. I had feelings of shame and guilt because my entire identity up until that point was completely revolved around my work, very American. And I defined myself and my worth around my work. And it wasn't until my childhood best friend, Bo, she passed away from cancer at the tender age of 33 years old. leaving behind her husband and her 8-year-old son. And that changed everything for me. I remember flying from London to Los Angeles on a completely full Virgin Atlantic flight, but yet I felt so effing alone. While that plane's still on the tarmac, getting ready for takeoff, the tears just started streaming down my face. At that point, being a mother, you try to stay strong and not show your emotions and all the things. And I realized in that moment, oh my God, that could have been me. Like, I think I'm invincible, but I'm not. And I thought maybe I could suppress my emotions in that moment. Let me have a glass of wine, let me watch a movie, let me put some sunglasses on. So, I was embarrassed because I was crying. But as horrible as this experience was in my life, this was my personal epiphany. It was thousands of miles from everything I ever knew in Europe when my childhood best friend passed away in the US. And this was the catalyst that made me question how I was living, how I was raising my children, how I was managing my personal energy, and what was I placing importance on that really set me on a deep personal development and spiritual path. And so I realized, like, the way I was doing things just I couldn't be doing that anymore. No more lone wolfing, no more going at life alone. And so I hired a coach. I realized, I needed to take control of my life, get accountability, and learn the tools and practices to start to stay in a place of calm and clarity and bust through those limiting beliefs of low self-confidence and unaware of my self-worth, and truly remember my own feminine power, right? And then essentially discover the steps to get clear on what is my purpose, what is mine to do here in this world. And so after doing all of that, I realized it would be selfish not to share these tools and practices that I've learned myself. And that's essentially what, I realize is my purpose here in this world. And I believe that it is well, no, not sometimes, it is our biggest pains, because, human life, we have more than one, that brings us to our biggest purpose. So that's essentially, I believe, is my life's purpose. My message and medicine in this world is to also help other women that maybe feel that there's got to be more, that they're meant to make a bigger difference in this world, or that they're yearning for something deeper and more meaningful than what they currently have. And for them to know that that's absolutely possible, and that it's never too late. It's never, ever too late to have the life you want.
Yeah, that's a key message. That last piece, that last sentence about it's never too late, right? It's, we can sometimes use age as an excuse or other things, right? But really, it never is too late. Your story is really remarkable, Leslie. Like it mirrors so many others in the sense of, that how you point out this struggle for some kind of an identity or to belong someplace, and you're using your strength of, of like being introverted in the sense of, I'm going to do this myself. I'm going to, and work through that. I'm curious on the, like, was that always there, this whole piece of there's got to be more, and the turning point happened obviously with your friend there dying, but did you notice that as a child too, growing up, that there was this yearning or curiosity to go past winning?
Great question. I believe that there were remnants of it. There was like a little whisperings, a little tap on the shoulder. But when we, are so concerned and we don't know any better, like we're so concerned with other people's opinions and what's happening outside of us, because perhaps we weren't raised in an environment with parents that, were able to mirror and reflect back emotionally healthy way of being and living in this world, and not being able to really listen and trust your own inner knowing. So I felt that there were moments of this doesn't feel right, this doesn't feel in alignment, but because I wasn't modeled anything different, and I didn't experience it any different growing up, that for me that was normal. That was normal for me. So again, it wasn't until I started doing, the work and realized, like, it's not normal. It's not normal. It's common, right? But it's not healthy. And we've we've normalized certain ways of living and being in this world because it's been like that for generations.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, like what's really coming up from you. First of all, I can really connect to your story. I have unfortunately similar story with one of my closest childhood best friends. In this case, I was here and I was going back to Italy. So I'm really sorry for your loss. I know what that feels like. It's really difficult. And it does make you really think about, that could have been me. That could have been me, right? So I just wanted to say that. Thank you for sharing that. What I wanted to connect with is this piece of this comparison piece, that when it comes in, right? Like, this is our normal, this is how we grew up. And we don't know any better until there's something different that shows up that we now see, that kind of challenges what's always been, like, we've taken for granted or we've taken for our normal, right? And perhaps that piece of intuition was there, like you said, the nudge or the tap on the shoulder. There was something within you, within us. We know deep down something is not adding up, but we can't really see it because, like you were pointing to, our normal is just showing us what our reality is in that moment. And then something comes in and is that contrast that now is showing us, oh no, things could be actually different. That is not normal for everyone. So what I'm curious about asking you is, do you feel that there's any other way that people could have that moment of awakening? That could, does it always take that tragic event, that bigger nudge, that like reality hitting you in the face for us to wake up? Or is there any other way that could happen? Have you experienced that with any of your clients? Rick is laughing because I ask this question often.
Oh, really? Well, let's see if I get the right answer. I think I don't know if there's a right or wrong, but I think there's a very common answer. I believe as humans, we experience life, it's full of polarities, just like Mother Earth. And we cannot experience one without the other. So we don't know love without fear. We don't know pain without joy. And so, yes, I believe it's not until we actually, they say it takes the breakdown to get to the breakthrough, or the chaos to get to the clarity. And so it's not unless we actually have that contrast of our own experience. We can read all the books we want and see all the movies and listen to all the podcasts, but until we actually experience that, like viscerally and somatically in our body, I truly believe it does take that human experience of pain and struggle to really, hopefully, want to have better and know that there is joy and life and light and happiness on the other side of that.
Yeah.
It's almost, for me, like I almost think like it's a two-sided coin, in the sense of, we talk about rock bottom a lot in our show, like is there such a thing, and do you have to get down to, and that rock bottom is different for everybody, right? I mean, but it's interesting though, because when you look at the particular circumstance, and the death of a close friend as being the circumstance, I know so many stories where people would take that as validation of how miserable their life is, and then go down that route, or flip the coin and go, you know what, that could be me, and take that as an opportunity to look at something differently. And I kind of I like that it's either validation of how miserable your life really is, or it becomes an insight of possibility.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, I prefer the latter, possibility.
Well, you do.
Of course, there's the grief, right? We have to feel the grief. We can't just spiritually bypass and be like, I get it. Let me meditate in yoga. I got it. You know, like a lot of my work as a trauma-informed master coach is you have to feel. You have to go through the sadness, the grief, the anger, and the rage. We cannot keep suppressing our emotions because that's what most of us have been doing as children. And we're walking around as little children in adult suits. So we have to give this the space and the integrity of our own process to feel. I mean, that's essentially how we heal, is we need to feel to heal. So yeah, that's where I stand with that. I'm a big believer in, you know, that we have to be able to have that safe space to really honor how we feel in our emotions and not minimize it, because that's what most of us have been doing as in our childhood. And that's what happens, is that it affects and it impacts how we see the world, how we show up in the world, our relationships, our personal work. I mean, everything. You know, the way we do one thing is the way we do everything.
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what comes up for me now is everything you said. Again, getting goosebumps. I completely agree with that. The suppression, repression, bypassing, avoidance, right? All of that, all it does is just shows up somewhere else, right? So we do need to feel to heal. But I also happen to know people that can get lost in that, right? So I would like to hear from you. I'm sure you've experienced that too. There's a point where it's important to start shifting out of that, right? Do you want to share a little bit about that, how you feel about this specific aspect of it, right? Because we could spend a long time rehearsing things too, right?
Yeah, we can stay in the vortex. We can stay there for a long time, because I always say this. You know, we will always be doing the work. There will always be another level and another layer of the onion to peel and heal, and we're never done unless we're dead. That's the way I see it. And absolutely, what I believe from my own personal experience and in working with my clients is that there has to be a moment of integration after you do this work. And only you know, right? Like the best coaches always, like, you know, they send their clients back to themselves, to their own inner knowing. Like only you know when it's time to stop reading the books. It's time to, you know, stop having the coach and just life is in session, start to integrate. Because it's true, like you can't keep reading and taking courses and doing all the things. You have to start implementing it and integrating it into your life. And that's how it becomes actually a habit, is when you really start to process it like somatically in your body, and it just becomes, right, naturally becomes a part of a way of your life and being, because you start to form those new neural pathways and you start to choose differently. And that's how you become, you know, more empowered and more conscious in this world, is becoming aware and making those different choices.
Yeah, you're now applying the simulation into real life, right? Coaching can be very much like training ground, but I love what you said. It's time to integrate and go do life. Like now go and apply all this stuff, and like, where are we gonna go from here? Like what's next?
Yeah.
Well, and to recognize that like you don't realize the power that you have until you actually put it into place. Because everything is just potential, right? It's just sitting there. And that's, you know, like I said earlier, life's a contact sport. And I say that not because you're getting, yes, you do get your kicks and your scuffs and various other things, but it's contact because you have to be in contact with life. You have to be connected. And that's what you're talking about. For me, like integration means being connected to your life, where you get to live your life and really experience your power and how it relates to everything that's going on around you.
Yes. Mic drop, Rick, mic drop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. You said it.
So why do we want to get a little bit into, we talked about this concept of competition, especially for women, right? Competition versus collaboration, and like really creating a different culture around ourselves, right? In our environment. I was wondering if we could just touch upon that a little bit, because I find that to be another very needed paradigm shift into a healthier way of living life.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I just want to preface, I always try to, want to preface my talks or my interviews or events and by saying that we need both. It's kind of like I talked about polarity, fear, love, joy, and pain. We both, all of us, no matter, regardless of gender, have this masculine and feminine conscious energy running through us. We need both, just like Mother Earth, right? Like the yin and the yang. But what's happened is that for thousands of years, it's been very imbalanced. It's been very imbalanced. And so this, every masculine has healthy and unhealthy, and the feminine has healthy and unhealthy. But what's been happening is that this unhealthy masculine energy, which we call the patriarchy, is destroying the planet. The divine masculine, yes, it's responsible for progress and evolution. It gets stuff done in an efficient and orderly manner. And we need this force. We need this go energy, right? But the shadow side of this energy is its preoccupation with power. So when the masculine energy becomes corrupt, it results in this toxic patriarchal society that we see today, and this attitude that's based on get, reject, use, and dominate, right? And so what we're seeing, especially after these past 3 years, most especially, is that there's this global shift, this awakening that is happening, where we are feeling and seeing that this inauthenticity, it's no longer can stand a chance, right? So relationship, jobs, brands, anything that's not in alignment with the flow of the universe, or however you want to call your higher power, God, source, energy, divine nature, and who we truly are, is becoming harder to hold on to. So for far too long, we've been living in this patriarchal society where the ego-driven powers of fear, unconsciousness, separatedness, and control have been at the forefront. And while, yes, this time there's been incredible advances in technology and in standards of living and in education, yet we are more depressed and disconnected and lonelier than ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
While the planet is in the state that it is in, it's not sustainable. We cannot continue like this anymore. Mother Earth is calling forth a new awakening, a new world of consciousness, in order for us to survive on this beautiful planet that we call home. And so there is this shift from competition to collaboration, from fear to love, from fact to truth, from separatedness to oneness, from left brain to right brain, from war to peace, and from force to flow. And so I just wanted to preface that. And so in answering your question, Fatih, about, specifically this, collaboration and why is there's this sense of competition, is because it's come from the patriarchal society, right? And so many women, they feel like they can't trust other women. And so this manifests as jealousy, insecurity, comparison, fear in relationships with other women. And so instead of viewing other women as sisters, we see them as competition, as enemies, or a source of harm. And so this has actually been designed by the patriarchal society to keep women small. It has been designed so that we fight each other. And so rather than fighting a larger system of inequality and oppression. So it's meant to keep us small. It's meant to keep us silent. It's meant to keep us in competition with each other. And so patriarchs were aware and afraid of female power. that they want to command peace, that they want to command harmony, right, among all living beings. And this is in conflict with their agenda, which is about controlling and owning and gaining control, right? And so this life became a game of survival, essentially, for us. And unfortunately, the game was not set up so that women could trust one another. So each time we put each other down, each time we compete with each other instead of joining forces, we unconsciously, simultaneously are holding this system up, actually, yep. Right? Yep. And so one of the deepest feminine wounds is this. It's within other women. It's what we call the sister wound. And so in order for us to fully reclaim our feminine power, we must heal this divide within our gender and within ourselves.
Wow. I love the way you connected all of it. It's so true. It's really like it's feeding that system. It's like it's keeping us busy against each other. So we're not paying attention where we should be paying attention, but we're also trying to be like the masculine, right? Showing up like in a masculine instead of embracing who we are and like supporting each other in that. Absolutely love the way you frame this and like the perspective that you're bringing to this. Really important to acknowledge and see and like realize this is what we're doing. Again, it goes back to conditioning, right? You don't know that you're doing it until you step out of it and you see it for what it is, because it's been our normal entire lives.
Well, and one of the barriers that I see, is this piece about the unknown, right? Like what we're talking about is something that is foreign in the sense of like we're so used to it. Like you pointed out, Leslie, we're in a system that's been developed for thousands of years, and it's familiar and it's comfortable. And so people that want to be in it need to have thought that the best way to be in it is to adapt it. Take it on that persona, right? So I'm going to be more masculine. I'm going to be, if I want to move ahead, this is what I have to do. That's the big paradigm, right? If I don't, then what is available? Like what is, right? And of course, when you say, all we want is just peace and love and understanding, nobody knows what that looks like. It's like, can we still buy groceries once we're all together, kind of a thing, because this is the other thing, I just, I'm being really tongue in cheek, but people have this impression about enlightenment as, oh, I'm going to sell everything, be broke, and go live in a Volkswagen van out on the beach someplace, and the world will be okay. But that's not really what I'm experiencing. The people that are embracing what you're talking about, Leslie, are very powerful people that are moving huge mountains and making huge differences in this world, but not necessarily being recognized for it.
Yeah, which is why actually, I really felt deeply the tap on the shoulder in 2020. And that's when I focused, my work with women. I was coaching both women and men. And actually the year before 2020, most of my clients were men. And then something shifted in me with everything that was going on that year in 2020. And I remember my business coach at the time said, Leslie, why don't you try, doing this event just for women? I'm like, I don't know about this. She goes, just try it. And it just was so aligned. It just felt so on purpose. And I had so many opportunities that came from that. And it just stayed in alignment for me. And I realized how needed this work is. And for me personally, it wasn't until I experienced personally and somatically in my body what it meant to be around other women, to collaborate over competition, to actually have community. Because what had happened at that year in 2020 is that I signed up for a year-long business program with it's a group of women. I ended up doing it for 2.5 years. And so I realized like, oh my God, it is possible. It is possible to collaborate with women. It is possible to be seen and heard and met by other women. Like I didn't even know it was possible until 2.5 years ago. I mean, like I said, it's never too late, right? So it is possible. And that's why it's so important. We talk about communities, to surround yourself, be in a container with like-minded, like-souled people that are doing the same work, speaking the same language, and you're on the same trajectory, because it's so easy to stay in a bubble and just, do your own thing and not really experience what is actually possible out there. There's a world of possibility out there.
Well, it's infinite, right? It's infinite.
But I love what you're speaking to, because what one of the challenges that I feel like we find in anything that we're trying to shift, right? Like we go do all the work, we have a coach, and we live in our bubble for a little bit, especially as coaches. I put myself into that. And then you go out in the world, right? Now integrating, living your life. And now you're up against the conditioning, you're up against where you're trying to shift. And it can be really hard to push up against that on your own, right? And so again, the value of having a like-minded community, of pushing together, versus us against the world, because it can feel that way. I find that oftentimes people fall back into their old ways because it can feel very lonely. It can feel very much like you're now up against the world, and it can make you question things like, is it just me, or like the world out there just looks and feels different? Maybe it's me, because it's just me and them, right? Can create actually separation too. So yeah, I think that there's such value in having that community, supportive, aligned community around you. Really important work.
Yeah, so important, so important. And whether it's virtual, in person, it doesn't matter. I've had some of the deepest connections with people virtually and hadn't met them in person yet. And, thankfully was able to meet them in person in LA when I went back home. But, it's whatever you put into it, that's what you're going to get out of it. So if, I always say, because like I'm in Spain. And so, a lot of the programs I take, they're US based. And so a lot of the people are in the US or Australia, but that I don't, limit the potential or possibility, because you never know. That's part of the whole stretch. That's whole part of the fear of the unknown. It's just do it. Just do it. The magic is outside of our comfort zone. So my encouragement is, whoever is listening, is, even if it's virtual, you never know. You never know. Just open yourself up to possibility of that community.
And part of opening yourself up is this idea of dropping your concepts, and I'm curious, like when you started your program, I don't know if you can remember, but I was just curious if what were some of the common paradigms that needed to shift for that group to, or maybe was it smooth from day one? Like, were you guys all in sync day one?
Absolutely not. You know the answer to that, Rick.
I know, but right?
No, it wasn't smooth sailing from the beginning, but it's really, again, it's about the facilitator and who's holding the container, right? And so, my mentor and all the other supporting coaches, there always were like seeding and encouraging, sisterhood, reaching out, collaborating, and what you see in your sister is a direct reflection of what is inside of you. And it's not just about being there to hear, other women's struggles and their challenges. While that's important too, but a big part of healing this sister wound and reclaiming your feminine power is to be celebrated, is to actually be seen and acknowledged for your wins, for what you've been doing, for your dreams that have come true. Because so many of us women, we tend to connect through negativity, through gossiping. Like that's the unhealthy feminine. That's the low vibes. It's just like, it feels contracted. It doesn't feel good, right? But what if we can celebrate each other? What are you celebrating? What are you bragging? And come more into that expansion energy, that open and receptive. Like that's a big part as well of keeping that community very high vibes, and also reclaiming one's feminine power.
Yeah. No, you're 100%. I mean, so many people have lost their voice, their connection, and you're highlighting it. And it's you know, there's a lot of it in the sort of the men's side of the equation.
Is there?
You know,
Gossiping and like,
we're not immune to any of that kind of stuff. But I mean, yeah, you know, I joke around like it, you know, like I've worked with some remarkable women, and got to, you know, here I am with some remarkable women right now, right? And I'm not just patronizing that. I just know there is this balance that needs to be in place. Like there's an opportunity, you know, I call it power and grace. You know, and it's that balance. And when you overuse a strength, like Carl Jung would say, you know, it becomes a weakness. And we're not familiar with balance. It's just sort of like the pendulum's always swinging, and we never get to see it resting. And until COVID hit. And for me, that was my kind of like aha moment to see this is what Mother Nature does when it rests. And if we're going to take life lessons from nature, we need to slow down. We need to, you know, stop going into extremes, you know, thinking that that's the way to do it. It's not. It's really about finding that sweet spot, and we call it the zone. We call it being in flow. We're moving with nature rather than trying to manipulate it.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah. I got on a smoke. So
no,
it's good. It's good. You were in the flow. You're in your flow, Rick. You're in your flow energy, feminine energy.
But I love the point that you made, Leslie, about, let's not just commiserate with each other. Let's not just be there for each other in pain. Just be there for each other and celebrate together and like empower each other. Like be grand and expansive and take up space together instead of shrinking together, you know, because that too is a paradigm shift. We're so used to pitching, right, about the husbands and the men and the boyfriends and the workplace, and things are not fair. And like, is that true? A lot of it is true. It is. But really focusing on that and coming together just in that is very disempowering, very disempowering. So I love that the work that you're doing is really pointing us towards the way to shift that is to stop complaining about it and commiserate about it and really celebrate the strides that we're making and the shift that we're making and stepping into the other side of this, into our own power. I love what you just spoke about. So I'm guessing this is what your program is. That, right?
Yeah, well, I definitely always start with celebrations, or I also call them brags. I always start my group calls and my private client calls with what are we celebrating today? Right. And celebration is also just another form of gratitude.
Absolutely.
Like being present with what is and being in the present moment. And I've had women, I go around, if there's enough time, I want everyone to get their voice in there. And someone will be like, I don't know, I don't think I have one. I'm like, well, you're here today, aren't you? Right. You showed up for yourself and you showed up for your sisters. That's worth celebrating. They're like, oh, yeah, I did. There's like, no matter how small, how large, I think there's always something worth celebrating.
And that shifts, in my experience, because I do the same thing, it shifts their brain state. And now all of the good things keep coming back. Because if you keep the person in that place and say, oh no, and then this happened, and then this happened, it's contagious. The same is true for negativity though, right? You go down that rabbit hole, you can find a lot more. So why don't we choose to go down the other rabbit hole for once? Let's play and see what happens. I absolutely love what you're speaking to. Really.
Well, I even like the point where, like, it's the little victories or the little celebrations, right? Because there's that, we're overusing the word paradigm here, but there's the belief around it has to be big to be celebrated, which is what a masculine type of attitude. Go big or go home. And you're absolutely correct. It's not. It's the tiny movements of a ship that turns it around. It's not. We don't see that. We see the result of, and we think, oh, look at that. Something happened. But yeah, it's the minor things, and we need to do more. Less.
Yes. Just that 1 degree shift. Just that one. We're not trying to go for like 45, not even 20. Just 1 degree shift in the right direction. That's all we need to do.
Even with the words, the choice of words that we use, like massive action, massive shift, massive results, like I now, as a coach, I am careful with my words, but I notice those things, because they can be really triggering sometimes to me. It's like, well, it feels a little masculine to always be like taking massive action, but we as women sometimes just adopt that, right? Because there's so much in our environment. It's expected, is what we celebrate, right? Going back to celebrating small wins versus like massive impact and results, which is very, very, very much a masculine energy, that we as women, we have shifted into a little bit in an attempt to be equal, right? We have shifted into this really masculine way of showing up as equal.
Yeah.
But there's a way to do it from the feminine.
Absolutely a way. And so I always share, there's nothing wrong with having goals, like wanting to have a certain degree or, wanting to have a certain business and you have a vision. But essentially what we're talking about is if someone feels like they're struggling or what they're missing in their life is in the area of love, belonging, connection, creativity, or contribution, which are all areas in the realm of the feminine, then one's primary barrier to success in those is actually not outside of themselves. It's actually within them, right? So it's a core belief that they have about themselves, about others, about the possibility or non-possibilities of their life. And so unless, one breaks free from it, no matter how hard they try and they do all the outward things, all the outward manifestations, just the outer work, they won't really succeed in the nature of what they really want to create, which is in this domain of the feminine.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's spot on with the, we're trying to manage our outside circumstances when all the work is really within us.
Right.
It's, so I had 4 daughters. It's like, hey, but it's interesting how each one is so unique and different. And as they were growing up, I was consciously trying not to influence anything as far as allowing them to just be humans. Right. Like for me, there was no, well, you have to do girl sports, you have to do this kind of stuff or whatever happens. But what was interesting, and I have one, she might be watching today, who knows? But what you talk about is this notion of some outside activity somehow, what's the word I'm thinking of, validates who you are. And earlier you talked about, like you became a mother, and you thought that was it, kind of a thing. And I still hear the struggle of, I want to be a contribution. I want to be part of this. I don't feel like motherhood is enough, or I don't feel like this is so there's this issue of of wanting more, and I almost feel like there's a tug or a pull that doesn't seem right about that. I don't know if you can speak about that a little bit, or from your perspective, or.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm sure there's a lot of listeners, women that have felt and dealt with that, or are currently dealing with that, especially, you know, women that perhaps had a career and then they became mothers, maybe they put it on hold, or they started working less. And so there's this real unconscious belief that if we're not getting paid for our service in something in the world, then it's less than, or it's not really of value. And so here we are as women, as working mothers, right? Like, we are not just working as a mother and having our own business and doing all the things, but we are working against this belief and the way that people view this. And so it's a lot that we're working up against. But I think again, if we do the work as individuals, we do the inner work, and again, that touches upon everything and how we show up in this world. And so we don't have to blatantly in really like that unhealthy masculine way, like be like, yeah, well, this is what it is to be a mother, and you know, and all, like, just show up and just be, you know, just keep being the light and being that that source of wisdom. And I think that's the way that people get curious. I think that's the way that people want to seek out, like, what is that all about? What does that mean? Or, right? So I always found in my own experience is that when we just continue being a walking billboard for, you know, what we believe and our values, that's when people potential to around you to change, instead of, you know, telling people how it should be or what they should be doing.
Yeah, no, I that resonates a lot. I mean, I often talk, you know, like, the more authentic you are, that's when your world changes.
But also, you know, what you're saying is, like, stop defending it. Stop coming from a place of defensiveness, right? And just be it. And without the need to justify it. Because I think at the beginning, I mean, I certainly experienced that, right? I certainly experienced that very recently with my divorce. I'm really open talking about it. There was a lot of shaming around the years that I spent home with my children. Like, from a legal standpoint, there's a lot of that, you know, thrown in my face. And we could sit there and defend it and feel like, you know, we need to justify it, which to some extent, unfortunately, I had to, right? Because it's legal matters, right? But then I realized, really, if I don't pay any attention to it, it's just gonna stay with them, right? There was a part of me, I really, really sat with this, and this was a moment of growth for me. I really sat with this, and maybe Rick even helped me with this, where I asked myself, well, what part of me actually believes that that's true, right? Because I'm showing up to, like, giving all the reasons why it's not, and I feel really touched and triggered by this. What part of me actually believes that? And I think I never thought about it that way, right? Because the conditioning was there in my head too, right? I had been conditioned to think that that wasn't really an equal value, right? It didn't bring in equal value because there wasn't a monetary exchange for it, right? And the moment that I let go of that, and, you know, I just walked my talk and did me. Listen, they kept their narrative, but it just didn't bother me anymore, right? Because my experience of it shifted. And guess what? They stopped the narrative too, right? They stopped saying it, because when you don't react, there's no reason to keep saying it, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that, Fatih, and thank you for, just really honoring you and your process. And thank you for sharing. And absolutely, it's just keep doing the work, and we don't have control over what happens outside of us, really don't, and what other people do. But the only thing we have control over is what goes on inside, and the meaning that we give to our experiences and what people do to us. So yeah, really, really.
And that's the foundation of your that's the power base, right? That's the power base of your program, is that when you understand that, when you experience that, then the world shifts for you, like Fatih did, right? You know, that's a power base. I know power sounds very masculine, but it's that balance piece. Like, you know, that's the grace of forgiveness coming through.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a shift that does happen. There's a shift that happens internally and actually happens physiologically. Like when we start to raise our vibration, and when we start to form those new neural pathways, and when we're in our pleasure, it actually activates those 4 feel-good chemicals of dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins naturally. And so when we can come from that place and make choices from that place, imagine how different the world would be.
The possibilities.
The limitless possibility.
Well, it's true, right? It's absolutely the truth, right? Because now you're geared. Now you're ready for the unknown, because that's where it's all going to happen, anyways.
Yeah. It's all unknown. We're all playing this game of life.
Oh,
we think we're all in control, but we're not.
We're not.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So
And
let me
sometimes, like you said earlier, it takes awakening. It takes something, a catalyst, right? I love the word catalyst, because that's what it is. It's something. It's a catalyst that changes. It transforms something, right? It sort of like wakes you up. It slaps you. It just says, "Hey, you know what? There's something wrong here. I need to pay attention."
So as we're coming to an end, Leslie, I wanted to know, is there anything that we should have asked you that you would like to add, that you want to just let our audience know, anything about your program, or like some final words that you want to leave us with?
Oh my gosh, it's been almost an hour already.
I know.
What happened?
Well, here. So fun.
We don't have to
What were we talking about?
I just want to give you enough space to just, leave us with, whatever you want to leave us with. We can go on forever, so we need time to close.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think we covered, we went everywhere. We went everywhere. It was very feminine in the flow and not linear at all. It went loop-de-loop and all the way around. So I loved being on your show, and thank you for having me. But I mean, I think the biggest takeaway I would love your listeners to walk away with, and we started the show with, it's never too late. It's never too late to do this work. It's never too late to be free and to be happy and to be sovereign. And we all can create a new future based on our consciousness, not our circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that would be the biggest takeaway I would love your listeners to walk away from, because it could be very easy that we go into victim consciousness, and especially the state of the world right now. There's just so much going on. And if you watch the news or go online, like, you can go down a rabbit hole. But you can create a new future based on your consciousness, and that's the choice I think we all get to have, of free will. And so I just encourage anyone that's listening to get curious, to be a seeker, and to find the people and to find the teachers and the tools and the practices that resonate with you, because there's so many ways to do things, and demystify all the ways that there's so many ways of doing this work. And so just keep trying, and just like what the show is about, it really is about collaboration and community. So hopefully your listeners were inspired to seek out people that are like-minded and like-souled, so that they know that they're not alone, that you're not alone and you're not meant to do this life alone. And the more and more that you can really lean into that and trust that life will be so much more, a little bit easier and much more enjoyable.
Absolutely. Like, and build that strength inside, you know, like have that power from the inside out, because life happens. Things are not always going to be perfect. But the more you depend on that power on the inside, and the less those circumstances, like you were saying, are going to affect your ability to show up and enjoy life and be in harmony with it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rick.
No, I was going to say those are powerful words, Leslie. And I encourage people to go to your website. Your TED Talk is wonderful.
Listen, I'm
get a little bit more of
the
Leslie
thing.
by watching it, and we'll send you the links. The links will all be part of the description in the podcast and in the YouTube channel.
I just posted them on the chat. So all your links are on the chat. If anyone wants to get in touch with you, listen to your amazing TED Talk, everything is there. It's also in the show descriptions on Facebook, LinkedIn. We're everywhere, Rick, aren't we?
You are.
YouTube.
Yes.
We're everywhere. Podcast. So all the links are going to be there. Reach out to Leslie.
And Leslie's got a free gift too, so it's
gift. I put all the links in there. And subscribe, follow, share the love. Help us amplify our impact. If you enjoyed this conversation, just share it with a friend that needs to hear this. This is what we do. This is what this is all about. Just being their support system for each other and changing this paradigm together. Let's do it together.
So thank you, Leslie, for being so open and authentic and vulnerable and
staying up late for us.
Staying up late for us.
It's not so bad with daylight savings. It's like 5.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. This was very, very informative and enlightening, and I really appreciate the conversation today.
And thank you, Rick, for holding space for us. And it really shows that you have a lot of work in life.
Yes, yeah. Thank you for having me, Fatì and Rick. And absolutely, Rick, holding down the divine, healthy masculine in this conversation, just showing how it's possible, what's possible with the balance, and that it's needed. Yeah,
absolutely. 100%. All right. Well, we'll catch you guys next week.
Hold your pose for a minute.
Yeah. Well, I'm hitting the button. All right. Good to see you guys.